In this video, we're going to take another look at the soil pillar in AGI Compass, and today we're going to focus on using alternate labs to our built-in A&L Labs Canada feature. Compass allows you to use any soil lab of your choice. However, we do have an integrated and automated connection with A&L Labs Canada. If you want to be connected to A&L Labs Canada, I do recommend you contact your AGI Compass support representative and we'll help facilitate this. However, today let's look at creating your soil samples, generating paperwork, and getting them submitted to your lab of choice, and then we'll take a look at how to manually add your results. First and foremost, get logged into your Compass system, click the soil pillar to be brought right to it. Once you're in the soil pillar, there's no additional setup or anything required to be able to use soil and submit to any lab you choose. Let's go right up to the middle, and I can either click Add Sample here, or I can click Add Sample over here to create a brand new sample. Once I'm into the sample, it's automatically going to pick my location, and if I'm a retailer or an agronomist and I have multiple locations, I can pick which location this soil sample is being done from. You will notice red boxes we do have to fill in. First and foremost is sample name. Compass will automatically attach the field, the legal land address, and the date of submittal to all of your samples. So get creative with your sample names, something like spring 2022, fall, whatever is going to help you identify this soil sample on the main page. Keeping in mind, it will automatically track field, legal land, and date of submittal. So for this, we're going to go with spring 2022. Number of samples. This is the number of sample locations or total samples by the depths you're doing. So for example, if you're going into a field and you're collecting 5 bags of 0 to 6 inches of soil, but you're submitting them to the lab as a single bag. You're just combining those different locations into one. That would be one depth at 0 to 6 inches. Number of samples. If you collected those same 5 bags, but they're being sent to the lab separately for benchmarking in that field, that would be 5 samples at that depth. So in this box, we're going to put how many samples per depth we are sending into the lab across our fields. So in this case, we're going to go 2. I'm doing 2 at 0 to 6 and 2 at 6 to 12. Optional is filling out the comments box, your intended, alternate, or previous crop. You can also put in your different yield goals. But let's move down the page to our next red box. We do have to put in at least one depth. So here I'm going to say 0 to 6 inches. Now the test box highlights red. I do need to select at least one test from our drop-down menu built right in. So here's my drop-down list of all the different tests. Now, you may not be familiar with what the acronym and fee code means. We did pull these in from A&L Laboratories Canada and built a legend in down below for anybody who doesn't have these memorized. If you're using an alternate lab to A&L Labs Canada, generally we find maybe the analysis or fee code is slightly different, but the tests contained within are the same. So you can still pick what's appropriate for your farm and make sure the right testing is going to get done. You can pick up to 2 more tests from the drop-down and manually type in a 4th. Let's put in our second depth. We did say we were going to do 6 to 12 inches here, and we're going to just select our test from the drop-down. We're going to do the S6 test. I can add more depths than the 4 that are automatically provided just by clicking the blue plus icon here, and if I choose to remove any unused depths, I can click the red trash can. Now I'm going to be presented to specify the fields the above sample information applies to. So going back up, we're doing 2 samples per depth, 2 at 0 to 6, 2 at 6 to 12. These are the tests we're running at each of those depths. Now Compass gives me the opportunity to pick all the fields that apply to the metrics we added above. This gives me a quick way to create one and done soil samples. Let's go ahead and click Submit with our 4 fields. And right away you can see Compass has now created me 4 separate soil samples, 1 per field that we were doing. As I mentioned when we were doing the initial setup, Compass automatically tracks the field and the date as well as intended and previous crop. And here it indicates we've picked our very own lab as opposed to A&L Laboratories Canada. Now that we've got our soil samples created, there's still a few things we can do before we go to submit them to our lab. I'm going to click the pencil icon on this field, and if I need to change any of the details up here in the header area, I can click the big red blue button here and change any information, and then click Update Header to resave. I can delete the soil sample if it was created in error, but it will delete the soil sample permanently from the system, including any results that I may have already tracked. Or I can also, before I go ahead and lock my soil sample here, I can turn on the map, and as I'm out collecting my bags of soil, I can click the globe icon on every depth that I'm collecting, and Compass will automatically drop a pin where it's detected my location. But alternatively, if I forgot to do this in field, I can still click inside the map and drop a pin for each one of those locations. Clicking on the pin ID, I can actually see the pin ID that matches down below. So if I wanted to remove one, I could make sure I'm getting rid of the correct one. The sample ID number, the sample name, the depth, the test, and for benchmarking purposes, I have my latitude and longitude, which will allow me to, in subsequent years when soil testing, refer back to this, get that latitude and longitude, put it into my GPS, and ensure that I'm pulling my new soil samples in other years from the exact same location. You can add multiple pin markers per depth, and as you see here, it's pre-selected that first sample, first depth from the menu, but here's my second depth at 0 to 6, first at 6 to 12, and second at 6 to 12, allowing me to pick which one is applying to this actual sample location. This is completely optional. You don't have to do this to do your soil samples, but it does provide you some benchmarking if you wish to do that in your fields. Now, to manually add all of my soil results, I'm going to click the Lock Sample button. But before we do that, let's look at generating some paperwork that I can throw in the box. However, if you are submitting to a lab outside of A&L Laboratories Canada, we do also recommend that you have that soil lab submittal forms on hand to fill out as well. Let's take a look. We're going to go to the Reports tab over here, and we're going to click Soil Label. This is now going to allow me to pick which soil labels do I want to create to go onto my bags of soil. Here, I'm going to select all 4 we created today, and Compass even lets you know if you choose to use stickers, you can buy the Avery 05260 sheets for printing. Let's click Generate Labels, and Compass is going to create that PDF report of all of my soil labels. There's all 4 samples that we were doing. Let's make this a little bit bigger. It gives me the name of the farm, the field, the sample, the depth, and a special FPS ID. Every soil sample created in Compass gets an FPS or Farm Planning System ID number that's specific to your farm, your sample, so you know your data will come back to the right spot. Now let's take a look at how to generate our paperwork that we can put in the box. We're going to do very similar to what we did with labels. We're going to go to the Reports tab here, and we're going to go to Multiple Submission Form. Again, we're presented with the ability to pick multiple forms, and let's pick the same 4 we did with our labels to go on our bags of soil, and we can bring our page down. Now, before we click Generate Forms, if we just click Generate Forms like this, Compass is going to try to fit as many of these samples on a single page to save you paper as it can. However, if you wish to have each on its own individual page, perhaps you're submitting in multiple boxes and you want to make sure the right paperwork is in the right box, you can click Include a Page Break after each sample, and each of these 4 would get its own individual page to go into the box. Let's just do it and save some money and some paper. We're going to do this. Now, automatically it lets us know downloading this report automatically is going to lock the soil sample for us. Would you like to proceed? Yes, we would. Here comes our paperwork. Let's click Open File. And as we zoom in, we can see some basic information, where it was the farm information, the name of the user, the name of the farm, fields, legal land location, the field ID from Compass, sample ID, test package, depths, crop, target yield, and recommendations. Here's our multiple depths and barcoded as well if your lab can scan and read barcodes. As mentioned, we at AGI Compass do recommend you manually fill out your soil lab submittal form. It may look quite a bit different than this. However, you could print this off and put it in the box as an additional reference. Now that we've printed all of our forms, our labels for our bags of soil, and our submission forms out of the program, now let's take a look at how we can manually update those samples themselves. I'm going to click on Sample Listing here, and now we can see those 4 samples we just created have a check mark beside them indicating they are locked. Now we're going to go in and manually add our results, and we'll get a check mark here letting us know the results have been completed. To do this, simply click the pencil icon next to the sample you wish to update, and we're going to scroll down the page a little bit. You can see here it's already locked the soil sample. Now all we have to do to add those results is click the Add Test Results button. Compass is automatically going to pick the date that you're creating the results, but you can also go back to Report Date here and set it back to when you actually received that returned report from your existing lab. You can also put up to 5,000 characters of agronomy notes in this box to be attached to the soil sample. However, once we've saved these results, I will show you another spot that's going to give you a more visual aspect and still allow you to add 5,000 characters of agronomy notes to your samples. In the lab number, this is a numeric box only. No symbols, no alphabet. We're just going to put numbers. 1, I'm going to go down to the next, 2, 3, 4. You can use whichever numbering system you would like. And we're just going to move our way across the screen and put in any of the details we got from our existing lab. Again, any of the numbers I punch in here are just for demonstration purposes and not reflective of real data. And you can see as we go through, we can continue adding our different markers we get from our lab in parts per million and by nutrient. Next to some of them, there is an additional drop-down. Now, this is something that A&L Labs uses, but you could use as well. And if you're curious as to what those acronyms mean, if we scroll down a little lower, let's look at these ones. We can see we've also got the legend built in here. VL is very low. L for low, M for medium, H for high, VH is very high, G for good, M for marginal, MT for moderate phytotoxic, and T for phytotoxic, ST for severe phytotoxic. You'll notice none of these are marked as red, meaning they aren't required information. However, they could be used if you required more details on your soil samples. Once you've completed all of your lines and information for updating your soil samples, simply scroll down to the bottom of the page and click Submit Results. This will save those results to the soil sample, and once you've done that, we'll go back to the sample listing and look at one that exists. You can click on it, and now you can still add your 5,000 characters of agronomy notes in this box. And once you do, let's just add some quick typing here. I'm not the best speller. And we can click Update Sample, and that's now saved those agronomy notes to the sample as well. From here, I can also change the report date if maybe it was a little earlier or later in the year. I can also attach a file. Perhaps I have a PDF soil health report, or my agronomist has more than 5,000 characters for agronomy notes and wants to send me a Word document of the fertilizer nutrient management plan. We can upload that from your PC just by searching for a file and easily bring that in. The only restriction is size. We're not trying to replace a Google Docs or a Dropbox, so 7 to 12 megabytes would fit. You can upload multiple files as well. As we scroll down, we can see the results that we manually added, and we have the availability here now to download our report. Our report is going to open in PDF format, and it's going to contain the information of the farm it was submitted from, or the client, the farm it was submitted for, the information for the samples, and those agronomy notes. You may end up getting a 2-page report depending on how many depths and results you have to have put into the sample. Let's go back quickly and we can take a look here. We can even go back to view the submission form, which also allows us to turn on our map and still, even after we've added results, upload a test point to, so that we can come back and benchmark year over year. This has been how to update and add your soil samples for any alternate lab to A&L Labs Canada in the Compass program. If you require more assistance than this video was able to provide, I encourage you to contact your AGI Compass support representative at 1-866-278-9530 and book an online session today. Thank you for watching and have yourself a fantastic day.